The champion's fist stopped 1 inch from a 10-year-old boy's nose. The whole room sucked in a breath, then broke into laughter. A national black belt had just backed a child into a corner to make a point. And now she turned that same grin on his father, a quiet man in worn work clothes, holding a mop. "1 punch," she said. "That's all it takes. I dare you." Everybody in that gym waited for the janitor to run. Instead, he set the mop against the wall, looked her dead in the eyes, and asked one word that turned every single laugh into silence. What that woman did not know was who this man used to be, and what he had buried to keep a promise to his dying wife. Ava Reynolds threw the punch just to hear the room gasp. The heavy bag jumped on its chain like it had been hit by a car. The crack of leather rolled across Iron Valley Martial Arts Center, bounced off the mirrors, and came back twice as loud. 30 people were sitting on the mats to watch her, and every one of them flinched at exactly the same time. That flinch was the whole point. Ava lived for it. "Again," she said, and hit it again, harder. The chain screamed. A kid in the front row whispered, "Whoa," under his breath. Ava was 32 years old, 5'7", 135 pounds of trained muscle. And she wore it like a woman who had never once lost a fight that mattered. National kickboxing champion, 2 years running. Black belt in 3 disciplines. Her face was on the banner outside the building, on the website, on the flyers stapled to every telephone pole in a 2-mile stretch of Denver. When people signed up at Iron Valley, they signed up for her. She knew it, and she never let anybody forget it. "You see that?" she called out, not even breathing hard. "That is what 15 years of discipline looks like. Not talent, not luck, discipline. You want a hit like that? You earn it every single morning, when the rest of the world is still asleep." The students clapped. They always clapped. Marcus, her senior student, a broad kid of 19 who followed her around like she had hung the moon, clapped the loudest. "That's why you're the champ," he said. Ava smiled. The smile that had sold 1,000 memberships. "That's right, because in this room, there are 2 kinds of people." She pointed at the bag, then swept her hand across the crowd. "There's the people who prove it, and there's everybody else." And that right there was the exact moment she made the mistake that would follow her for the rest of her life. Because at the far corner of the gym, past the mirrors, past the racked equipment, a 10-year-old boy in a hand-me-down t-shirt was quietly throwing punches at the air. His name was Noah Carter, and his father was the man Ava Reynolds had spent 8 months not seeing. Daniel Carter worked the closing shift. He mopped the mats after the last class, wiped down the mirrors, emptied the trash, checked the boiler in the back that liked to quit in winter. He wore the same 2 pairs of work pants, the same faded flannel, a ball cap gone soft at the brim. And he moved through Iron Valley like a piece of the furniture, useful, invisible. Nobody in that building knew a single true thing about him. They didn't know that before he pushed a mop for a living, Daniel had spent 11 years in places most of them couldn't find on a map, learning things from men who taught for keeps. What Ava demonstrated for applause, Daniel had done for his life. They didn't know he had walked away from all of it, and they for damn sure didn't know why. They only knew he cleaned up after them, and that his boy sat in the corner every evening doing homework, waiting for his dad to finish so they could drive home together. Noah threw another punch, slow, careful, the way a kid punches when he is copying what he saw on TV and hoping nobody is watching. Somebody was watching. "Hey!" Ava's voice carried. She had turned, tracking the movement in the corner the way a cat tracks a bird. "Hey, kid! What are you doing back there?" Noah froze. 30 heads turned toward him at once. He dropped his hands like he had been caught doing something wrong. "Nothing," he said. "Sorry." No, come here." Ava was grinning now, and it wasn't a warm grin. It was the grin of a performer who had just spotted an easy laugh. "You were throwing punches. Let me see it." Come on, come out here." "He's fine where he is," Daniel said. It was the first thing anybody had heard the janitor say in weeks. He had come out of the back with a fresh trash bag, and he stood there at the edge of the mat, calm, mild, a man asking for nothing. Ava looked at him like she was seeing a chair speak. "Relax," she said. "I am just having a little fun. Come on, kid, show the room what you got." And Noah, God bless him, wanted so badly to be brave in front of his father that he stepped out onto the mat. "All right," Ava said, backing up, giving him room, playing to the crowd. "Show me a punch, a real one, like you mean it." Noah threw a punch. It was a 10-year-old's punch. Elbow flaring. Feet flat. All arm and no hip. The kind of punch that would tap you on the shoulder and apologize. And Ava Reynolds, national champion, face of the academy, put her hands on her knees and laughed at a child. "Oh, buddy," she said. "Oh, no, 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 no." The students laughed with her, because that's what students do. "That's not a punch," she said, straightening up, wiping an imaginary tear. "That is a wave. You punch like somebody who has never in his life been in a real fight." She turned to the crowd, arms spread wide. "Am I wrong? Tell me I am wrong." "You're not wrong," Marcus called, delighted. Noah's ears went red. He looked at the floor. Daniel set the trash bag down. He didn't say anything yet. He just took one step forward, put himself a little more between the room and his son. And there was something in that small movement themselves, the economy of it, the total absence of hurry, that a smarter person than Ava might have noticed. Ava did not notice. Ava was on a roll. "Whose kid is this anyway?" She scanned the mats. "Somebody's got to claim him. Come on." "He's mine," Daniel said quietly. Ava's eyes landed on him and traveled slow, deliberate, meant to be seen. From the ball cap, down the faded flannel, to the work boots with the mop water still on them. She let the silence stretch, because she knew how to work a silence. "Oh," she said, "you are the dad." "That's right. The janitor's the dad." She said it to the room, not to him, and the room laughed again, and every laugh landed on the boy standing in the middle of the mat, with nowhere to look. "That explains it. Listen." She spread her hands, all fake generosity. "No offense, okay? Some people fight. Some people clean up after the people who fight. That's just how it is. There's no shame in it." "Nobody's ashamed of anything," Daniel said. "Good. That's good," she grinned. "But maybe, and I'm just trying to help here, maybe instead of teaching your boy to throw a punch, you teach him something you actually know. Show him how to hold a mop, where the bucket goes. That's a real skill. That'll feed a family." The room exploded. Somebody actually applauded. Marcus was bent over. A woman in the second row had her hand over her mouth. It was the biggest laugh Ava had gotten all week. And she took a small bow to accept it. And Daniel Carter looked at his son. Not at Ava. At Noah. He saw the way the boy's shoulders had curled in. He saw him blinking too fast, jaw tight, doing the exact thing Daniel had taught him. Don't let them see it. Don't give them that. And doing it so well, so bravely, that it broke something in Daniel's chest clean in half. Because Noah was 10. And Noah had already lost his mother. And the one thing Daniel had left to give that boy was the sense that his father was a safe place to stand in a world that laughed at you for no reason. And this woman was taking a hammer to it, in front of 30 strangers, to sell a few memberships. Daniel felt the old thing wake up. He knew it the way you know a storm is coming from the pressure in your ears. It didn't feel like rage. That was the part people never understood about him. It didn't feel hot. It felt cold. A stillness dropping down through his chest and into his hands. The world going very quiet and very slow. Every exit and every angle suddenly bright and obvious. He had spent years of his life in that place. He had done things in that place he would not describe to another human being as long as he lived. and he had promised, on his knees at his wife's bedside, that his son would never once meet the man who lived there. Not for this, he told himself, not over a joke. You bury it, you take the boy home, you let it go. He picked the trash bag back up. Come on, Noah, let's get your stuff. And he would have done it. He would have walked out of that gym with his boy and eaten every ounce of it. Because that was the harder thing. And the harder thing was almost always the right thing. That was the whole life he had built. Swallow it, protect him, walk away. But Ava couldn't leave it alone. Wait, hold on. She stepped in front of him, not touching, but planting herself in his path, closing off the easy exit. The smile was still there, but something meaner sat behind it now, because a man walking away with quiet dignity was somehow worse for her than a man who fought back. It made her the loud one. It made her the smaller person in the room. And some animal part of her felt that, even if she couldn't name it. You know what your problem is? She said. You come in here every night. You watch us train. You watch me train. And I know that look. I have seen it 100 times. It's the look of a guy who thinks he could do it too. If he wanted to. If he weren't so busy. If life hadn't gotten in the way. She leaned in a couple of inches. The guy on the couch who yells at the TV, am I right? You should let us go, Daniel said. His voice hadn't changed at all. Same flat, mild, tired tone. But that was somehow the thing that got under her skin worst of all. That she couldn't get a rise out of him. Couldn't find the crack. And Ava had never in her life been able to leave a locked door alone. Or what? She said. And now she was smiling again, big, playing to the phones that had started coming up around the room. That is the question right now. You keep saying, let us go, like there is some or what on the end of it. So finish the sentence. What happens if I don't go? You are going to do something about it, tough guy? No, Daniel said. I am going to take my son home. See, I don't think you are. She turned to the room. Arms wide, the showman again, the crowd hers. I think this is a guy who talks a big game in his own head and does absolutely nothing in real life. And that's fine, most people are like that, but don't stand in my house and give me the look. She stepped back, gave herself space, and then she did the thing. Tell you what, Ava said, and her voice pitched up so the whole room and every phone caught it clean. You think you know something I don't? You think there's a fighter in there somewhere under the flannel? Prove it right here. She tapped her own chin with 2 fingers. Twice. Taunting, the oldest insult in the book. That's all I will give you. 1 free shot. You land it, you walk out of here a legend. And I will apologize to your kid on camera. You miss, you go back to the mop, and we never talk about it again. She smiled wide. 1 punch. Prove it. The room went wild. Do it, somebody yelled. Come on, janitor. Marcus was filming. Half the room was filming. The heavy bag still swayed a little on its chain in the corner. And under the fluorescence, Ava Reynolds stood with her chin out and her hands down and that grin on her face. 100% certain, bone certain, the way you are only certain about things you have never actually been tested on, that this soft, sad, invisible man was about to fold like a lawn chair and give 30 people the best laugh of the month. And Daniel stood very, very still. Here's what nobody in that gym could see. Behind his eyes, a door he had spent 10 years welding shut was rattling on its hinges. He could see, with a clarity that made his stomach turn, exactly how it would go. He could see the distance between them. He could see the way she carried her weight. All forward. All offense. Hands low. Because she had never in her career fought a single soul who could reach her before she wanted them to. He could see the 4 different ways to put her on the floor, before her champion's reflexes even filed a complaint. He could see it the way you see a word you have known your whole life. It was nothing. It was easy. It was the easiest thing in the world. And that was precisely the horror of it. You let it go, he told himself again, and his hands had gone cold, and it was already too late to fully believe himself. You have a boy watching. Whatever you do right now, that is who he thinks you are. For the rest of his life, so you show him the strong thing. You show him you can eat it and walk. Dad? Noah's voice, small, right beside him. Daniel looked down, and the boy wasn't scared for himself anymore. That was the thing that reached in and grabbed Daniel by the heart and squeezed. Noah had stopped being embarrassed about his own bad punch. He was looking up at his father. And there was fear in his face. But it wasn't fear of the champion. It was fear for his dad. Because Noah had watched 30 adults laugh at his father. And some part of that 10-year-old had done the math that no child should ever have to do. They are laughing at him, and he is not going to do anything. And I don't know if that means he is the strongest person here or the weakest. And I need him to be the strongest. Please, please let him be the strongest. And it was all right there in his face, naked, waiting. And Daniel understood something in that half a second that Ava Reynolds would need weeks to understand about herself. There are two ways a father fails a son in a moment like this. He can be weak. He can shrink and take the joke and teach the boy that the world gets to laugh at you and you say thank you and clean the mat. Or he can be exactly as strong as this woman wanted him to be. He can step forward and be magnificent, be terrifying, put the champion on the floor in front of her worshippers and teach the boy that the answer to cruelty is to become more dangerous than the cruel person. Teach him that a man's worth is measured in what he can break. Both of those were failures. Daniel had spent his whole ruined younger life learning it the hard way. There was a third thing. There had to be a third thing. And in that moment, he did not yet know how he was going to find it. He only knew he could not walk away. And he could not win the way she was begging him to. So he did the only thing that bought him away to do neither. He looked back up at Ava Reynolds, and his voice came out as quiet and level as it had been all night. When the whole gym stopped for a second, Ava thought she had misheard him. Everyone did. The laughter didn't die out, it just cut off. All at once, like a plug pulled from a wall. Because that single flat word had landed in the room completely wrong. It wasn't the word of a man being brave. It wasn't a challenge shouted back. There was no heat in it, no bluster, nothing to laugh at. It was the word of a man checking his calendar. When. Not, why not? Not, you're crazy. Not, I'm not going to hit a woman. Not, sure, buddy, sure. None of the exits people take, just when, delivered by a tired janitor holding a trash bag in a tone that suggested he was already sorry about whatever the answer was going to require. Ava's grin flickered. It was gone so fast that later, when she watched the video 100 times, she could barely catch the frame where it happened. But it happened. Something cold walked up the back of her neck. And she didn't know why, and she covered it the way she covered everything, with more volume. When, she repeated, and made herself laugh. Look at this guy. He wants to schedule it. She turned to the room, but the room wasn't laughing with her the way it had a minute ago. The phones were still up, but the mood had shifted a degree, in a direction nobody could name. Okay, big man. You want to win? How about not here, Daniel said. Not tonight. Not in front of him. He tipped his head toward Noah once. You want to do this? We do it right. A time, a place, people to make sure it's fair. So there's no story afterward about how somebody cheated. He looked at her steadily. You understand me? And that, the you understand me, landed on Ava like a hand on the shoulder. Because he had said it the way you say it to someone you are about to be responsible for. Like a man explaining the rules of a thing to a person who did not yet grasp how serious the thing was. Marcus lowered his phone a couple of inches. Coach, he said uncertainly. You okay? I'm fine, Ava snapped. Of course I'm fine. She looked at Daniel, and something in her wanted badly to back all the way out of it. to laugh it off, wave it away, let the janitor keep his little wen and go home. But 30 people had seen. The phones had seen. And Ava Reynolds had built her entire self on being the one who never blinked. And she could not be the one who blinked at a man with a mop. So she doubled down, because that was the only direction she had ever learned to go. You know what? Fine. She lifted her chin. You want it official? We will make it official. Saturday. 9 days. Right here on this mat. Doors open, everybody welcome. We put it out there. We let the whole city come watch, and we settle it clean. That work for your schedule? Saturday. Daniel agreed. 9 days. 1 punch from me, you get everything I've got. From you? 1 punch. She jabbed a finger at the air between them, trying to plant her flag back on top of the moment. That's still all you get. 1. If that's even fair to you, which, honestly, I don't think it is. 1 punch is more than enough, Daniel said. He said it so simply, so completely without threat, that it was worse than any threat could have been. He wasn't bragging. He was telling her something true and trying to be gentle about it. And she was too proud to hear the gentleness. And that combination, that exact combination, is the seed of everything that went wrong for Ava Reynolds, and everything that would, in the end, save her. He picked up Noah's backpack off the corner bench and held it out to his son. Get your shoes, bud. Dad, Noah started. Shoes. Noah got his shoes. Ava watched the two of them move toward the door, and she felt the strangest, most unfamiliar thing crawl through her. A thing she would not have a name for until much later. She had won. She had gotten her yes. She had gotten her Saturday. She had gotten a viral moment that was already, she could feel it, going to blow up her numbers overnight. She had won every measurable thing there was to win. And she felt, watching that man straight back go through the door with his kid, like she had just lost something she didn't know she had. 9 days, she called after him, because she had to have the last word. Don't chicken out on me, mop man. Daniel didn't turn around, but at the door, Noah did. The boy looked back at Ava Reynolds, at the champion, at the banner with her face on it, at the whole laughing gym. And there was no fear in him now, just a strange, quiet, 10-year-old kind of pity. The look a child gets when he understands something the adults in the room haven't figured out yet. He didn't say a word. He just looked at her a beat too long, then turned and followed his father out into the dark. The door swung shut, and Ava Reynolds stood on her own mat, in her own gym, under a banner with her own face on it, surrounded by people who had just watched her win. And for the first time in longer than she could remember, she couldn't think of a single thing to say. The truck's heater took its time, the way it always did. Daniel drove with both hands on the wheel and the wipers going against a thin, cold rain. And for 4 blocks, neither of them said anything at all. Noah sat with his backpack in his lap, hugging it, watching the wet streetlights slide by. Dad? Yeah? Are you really going to fight her? Daniel didn't answer right away. He watched a light turn yellow and eased the truck to a stop. Instead of running it, the way he did everything, no hurry, no drama, the safe choice made so consistently, it had stopped looking like a choice. Eat your granola bar, he said. It's in the side pocket. You didn't have dinner. Dad? Noah's voice cracked just a little, and he hated that it did, and pushed through it. She's a champion. She was on the news one time. Marcus said she never lost. Ever. He turned in his seat. Why did you say when? Why didn't you just... We could have just left. You always say we just leave. You always say the strong thing is to walk away and not care what people... I know what I say. So why didn't you do it? And there it was. The question from the one person in the world Daniel could not lie to and would not. The light went green. Daniel didn't move for a second. Behind them, no one honked, because there was no one there. It was just the two of them and the rain and a red and green wash across the windshield. "Because you were watching," Daniel said. He said it quietly. And he pulled through the intersection. "That's not—" Noah shook his head, frustrated. 10 years old and drowning in something too big. "That's not an answer. That doesn't even make sense." "It will." Daniel glanced at him. "Someday it will. I promise you it will." "Are you going to win?" And Daniel Carter, who could have told his son the truth, which was that he could end that fight in under 2 seconds without breaking a sweat, that the champion had never in her charmed career stood across from a single person like him, that winning was not remotely the thing he was afraid of. Daniel looked at his boy's scared, hopeful 10-year-old face in the green light and understood that his son was asking the wrong question, and that the whole next 9 days were going to be about teaching him the right one. "I don't know yet," Daniel said, which was, in the only way that counted, the truest thing he could have said. Noah slumped back against the seat. He wasn't satisfied. But he was 10, and he was tired, and his father's hands were steady on the wheel, and that steadiness had gotten him through the worst year of his short life. So he let it hold him now. They rode in silence the rest of the way. But there was a photograph in a shoebox on the top shelf of Daniel's closet. A photograph Noah had never seen. Of a younger man in gear that wasn't work clothes, standing in a place that wasn't Denver, wearing an expression Noah would not have recognized on his gentle father's face. And in 9 days, before he walked back into that gym, Daniel Carter was going to have to take that box down, open it, and decide how much of the man in that photograph his son was old enough to meet. The rain came down on the windshield. The wipers swept it away. And somewhere across the city, in a gym that had already emptied out for the night, a shaky phone video was climbing past 10,000 views, then 20, then 50. The whole internet already picking a side, already laughing at the janitor who had said one word to a champion. Not one of them had the faintest idea what that word was going to cost. By the time Daniel Carter pulled into his own driveway, 40,000 strangers had already decided who he was. He didn't know that yet. He carried a sleeping 10-year-old up the front steps, one arm under the knees and one behind the back. Noah's face mashed into his shoulder. He got the door open with 2 fingers and eased it shut with his heel so the hinge wouldn't wake him. He laid the boy on the bed, still in his clothes, pulled off his shoes, pulled the blanket up, and stood there in the dark a minute longer than he needed to, watching his son breathe. Then he went to the kitchen and did what he did every night. He rinsed the one plate. He set the coffee for morning. He checked that the back door was locked, checked it a second time. The old habit that never left. And he did not look at his phone, because he already knew what was on it. His phone had buzzed 19 times in the truck. He had let it. Now he picked it up. The video was the first thing. Somebody had titled it, "Black Belt Champ Destroys Cocky Janitor." He actually said yes. LOL. 51,000 views. It had been up for less than 3 hours. Daniel watched 30 seconds of it, no sound, then set the phone face down on the counter. In the video, he looked exactly like what they were all calling him. A tired man in flannel holding a trash bag, saying one word to a laughing champion. You couldn't see his eyes in the phone footage. You couldn't see the thing behind them. All you could see was a mop guy who had bitten off something that was going to embarrass him in front of the whole city. And the comments, Daniel didn't read them, but he knew. He could feel the shape of them through the phone like heat through a wall. The comments were 1,000 people already sharpening knives for Saturday. He turned the phone all the way off. You should read some of those. Actually, he hadn't heard the front door. He never didn't hear a door. That was how far off his center he already was. 9 days out. His sister Rachel stood in the kitchen doorway, coat still on, her own phone in her hand, and the look on her face was not a good look. It's midnight. You said yes to fighting a professional. She held the phone up. You, my brother, who won't even honk at people. You said yes. How did you find out? How did I? Daniel, she laughed, but it came out wrong, high and scared. It's on my feed. My coworker sent it to me. My dentist posted it. You're a meme. There's a version where they put circus music over you. Her voice climbed. What is happening? What did you do? Keep your voice down. He's asleep. Is he okay? He's fine. He is not fine. He was there. Everybody was. She stopped herself, pressed her lips together, tried again, quieter. I saw what she said about the mop, in front of him, in front of Noah. Her jaw worked. I want to drive over there and put her through a wall. Well, Daniel filled a glass of water at the sink. That is the thing I am trying not to teach him. Rachel stared at her brother. She was 4 years younger than him, and she had known him her whole life. And there had been an 11-year stretch in the middle of it where she didn't know him at all, where he came home from wherever he had been, quieter each time, older each time, until the day he came home for good, and was so still and so gentle and so careful that she had cried in the car, because she had gotten her brother back, and he was somehow a stranger she loved more than the loud kid she had grown up with. She knew what he used to be. She was one of maybe 3 people alive who did. Daniel, she set her phone down. Look at me. Are you going to hurt her? And that was the question that mattered, the only one. And Daniel Carter set down the water glass without drinking from it, and did not answer it for a long moment. No, he said finally. Then a beat of silence. I am not going to hurt her. You paused, Danny. She came a step closer, dropped her voice all the way down. I saw it. I know that pause. I have seen that pause exactly one other time in my life, and it was the night before you left for don't. And you gave me the same no, the same voice. And then you were gone for 3 years and you came back different. Her eyes were wet now, and furious. So I am asking you as your sister, what happens to you when that woman comes at you Saturday with everything she has got and 30 phones are pointed at you? And she catches you one good time. What happens to the man I got back because I did not fight to get you back, so you could throw it away for a comment section? The kitchen was very quiet. Down the hall, the heater ticked. A car went by outside, headlights sweeping across the ceiling and gone. That is the whole problem, Daniel said. That is the exact thing I have been sitting in the truck thinking about for an hour. He looked at her, and for 1 second, the careful mask slipped, and Rachel saw underneath it something she hadn't seen in 9 years and hoped never to see again. Not fear of Ava, fear of himself. I don't know what happens to me. That's the truth. 9 years I have kept that door shut. And I don't actually know how strong the lock is anymore, because I have never tested it. And Saturday I am going to have to open it a crack on purpose, in a room with him watching. Then don't do it. Call it off. I can't call it off. Why not? Let them laugh. You've eaten worse than laughing. You taught me that. You said the strongest thing a man can do is, because he asked me if I was going to win, Daniel said. Rachel stopped. In the truck on the way home. Daniel's voice was very level. He asked me if I was going to win, Ra. And I looked at him and I realized he is 10 years old. And he already thinks the whole question is win or lose. He thinks those are the only 2 things there are, and I don't blame him, because that is what that gym taught him tonight. That is what the whole world is about to teach him this week. He shook his head slowly. 2 kinds of people, the ones who prove it and everybody else. If I call it off, he learns his dad is the everybody else. And if I go in there and destroy her, and I could, and God help me, some part of me wants to, he learns that the answer was to be scarier than the person hurting you. His jaw tightened. Both of those are lies. And he has got no mother to unteach them to him. He has just got me. Rachel didn't say anything for a while. So what is the third thing? She finally asked. I don't know yet, Daniel said. but I have got 9 days to find it." Which was a good line, and a true one. And it would have been a fine place for the two of them to leave it, except that at that exact moment, from the dark hallway behind Rachel, came a small voice that stopped both their hearts. "What door?" Noah was standing in the hall in his socks. Neither of them knew how long he had been there. That was the thing about the careful house Daniel had built. He had built it so quiet that the quiet worked against him now. And his son had come down the hall on 10-year-old feet and stood in the dark and heard, God only knew how much. "Hey, bud," Daniel said, and his voice changed completely, went soft. "You are supposed to be asleep. You said there is a door you keep shut." Noah stepped into the kitchen light. He looked from his father to his aunt and back, and there was a new thing in his face, a fear that had teeth in it. "Aunt Rachel said you came back different." "Different from what? Different from when?" His chin was trembling. "What are you guys talking about?" "What door, Dad?" And Daniel Carter looked at his sister, and his sister looked back at him. And in that look was 9 years of an agreement they had never spoken out loud. He doesn't need to know. Let him have a normal father. Let him have that. And Daniel realized, standing in his own kitchen at midnight, that the agreement was over. That it had ended the second Ava Reynolds pointed at his boy and laughed. "Ra," he said quietly. "Give us a minute." "Danny, please." She looked at Noah. She looked at her brother. Then she squeezed the boy's shoulder on her way past, and at the front door, she stopped and said, without turning around, "Whatever you decide to tell him, he can take more than you think. He's yours." And then she was gone into the rain, and it was just the two of them again, the way it had been for a year. Daniel pulled out a kitchen chair. "Sit down, buddy." Noah sat. Daniel didn't sit. He went to the hall, and Noah heard the closet door, and he heard the sound of something being pulled down off a high shelf, and when his father came back, he was carrying a shoebox that Noah had seen 1,000 times and never once been allowed to touch. The box on the top shelf, behind the winter blankets. The box, Daniel said, had just old paperwork in it. That's what he had always told Noah whenever the boy asked. Daniel set it on the table between them. "Before I show you this," he said, "I need you to understand something. Can you do that? Okay? The man in this box is me, but he is a me from before you were born, and I'm going to show him to you because I think you are old enough. And because I would rather you meet him from me than hear about him from somebody else." He put his hand flat on the lid. But he scared people, Noah. He scared people on purpose. And there is a part of me that is still scared of him. Do you understand what I'm telling you? No, Noah said honestly. That is okay. You will. And Daniel took the lid off the box. On top was a photograph. Noah leaned over it. In the photo, a group of men stood in front of something that wasn't in Colorado. Flat brown ground, a low concrete wall, a sky the wrong color. They wore gear Noah had only seen in movies. And in the middle of them, second from the left, was a young man Noah almost didn't recognize. Because the man was his father's face. But it wasn't his father's eyes. His dad's eyes in that photograph were flat and quiet and about 100 years old. And they looked straight into the camera like the camera owed them money. "That's you," Noah whispered. "That's me. I was 24. "You're a soldier." "I was a lot of things." Daniel sat down now, across from his son, and rested his forearms on the table. The short version, the one that's true and that you can hold on to, is this. He paused. "Before I met your mom, I spent a long time in some very bad places doing a very hard job, and I was good at it. I was so good at it that they kept me longer than they should have, and the longer I stayed, the more I found out something about myself that I didn't like." He looked at his hands. "I found out that when things got bad enough, there was a place I could go inside my own head where I stopped being scared, where everything got calm and slow. And in that place, I could do anything that needed doing, and not feel it at all. Not while it was happening. His voice dropped. The feeling came later. It always came later. Noah was very still. That place kept me alive, Bud. I won't lie to you and say it didn't. But it is not a place a good man visits, and by the end, I was scared I was going to like it too much. So I came home. He paused again. And then I met your mom. A small, real smile touched his mouth, for the first time all night. And your mom looked at that whole part of me. I told her everything. Everything. More than I have ever told anybody. And you know what she said? What she said. She said, "That man kept you alive so I could have you. So we will thank him, and then we will put him away. And you and I are going to build a whole life on top of the box where he sleeps." Daniel's eyes were wet now, but his voice held. So that's what we did. We built a life on top of the box. And then you came along, and you were the best thing that was ever built on top of any box in the history of the world. He stopped. He had to. Noah waited. When your mom got sick, Daniel went on, rougher now. At the very end, she made me promise her one thing. She didn't ask me to be happy. She knew that was too much. She didn't ask me to find you a new mom. His voice broke just slightly. She grabbed my hand. She was so weak by then, she could barely do it, and she said, "Promise me he never meets that man. Promise me our son never once has to be afraid of you." He swallowed. And I promised her. That's the promise I have been keeping for a year, buddy. That is the whole reason I clean floors for a living instead of a dozen other things I could do with what I know. Because floors are quiet. Floors are safe. Nobody ever got hurt because I mopped a floor a little too hard. The kitchen clock ticked. Noah looked at the photograph for a long time, then he looked up at his father, and Daniel braced himself for fear, for the thing he had spent a year dreading. The day his son looked at him and saw the man in the box. But Noah didn't look afraid. Noah looked like his heart was breaking. "Dad," he said, "the lady at the gym, when she was laughing at you, you could have made her stop the whole time, couldn't you?" It wasn't a question. "Yeah," Daniel said quietly. "I could have made her stop."
But you didn't, because you promised Mom.
Because I promised your mom. And Noah Carter, 10 years old, did the math a third time. The math he had done in the gym. The math that had been eating him for hours. And this time it came out completely different. This time he understood that the strongest person in that whole laughing room had been the one man in it who chose to stand there and take it. And that his father wasn't weak. Had never been weak, was in fact so strong that he had spent a year holding a door shut with his bare hands, so that his son would never have to be afraid. And that the only thing that could have made him open it, even a crack, even for a second. "You said when," Noah said slowly, "because of me." Daniel didn't answer. He didn't have to. Noah got up out of the kitchen chair, and he came around the table, and he put his arms around his father's neck. And Daniel Carter, who had been calm in places that would break most men in half, who had a door welded shut in his chest and a champion coming for him in 9 days, put his face against his son's hair and finally, quietly, for the first time in a very long time, let himself not be okay. "I'm not scared of you, Dad," Noah said into his shoulder. "I want you to know that. I'm not." "I know, Bud." "And you don't have to win Saturday. Okay, I don't care about that anymore. I take it back. You don't have to win." Daniel held him tighter. "That," he said, "might be the smartest thing anybody said to me all year." They stayed like that a while. And that could have been the end of the night, the warm end, the father and the son, and the truth finally out on the kitchen table between them. But 2 miles away, at that same midnight hour, Ava Reynolds was sitting alone in her office at Iron Valley. Lights off. watching the same video for the 40th time, and she wasn't laughing at it anymore. She had stopped being able to laugh at it around 300,000 views. Because somewhere in the last hour, the numbers had gotten too big, and the comments had turned a corner she didn't expect. And now half of them weren't cheering for her. Did you see his face when he said win? Bro, that wasn't fear. That was a warning. She is going to find out. Something about the janitor's not adding up. Look at how still he is. My uncle was a ranger. I have seen that exact non-reaction. That man is not what she thinks he is, Ava scrolled, and her thumb was not quite steady. You're up late. Marcus was in the doorway, gym bag on his shoulder. Last one out, like always. Too loyal to read a room. Go home, Marcus. You okay, coach? He came in anyway. This is huge, by the way. The numbers? My cousin in Phoenix sent it to me. He doesn't even know I train here. You are going to get so many new signups off this. This is like the best thing that ever... I said go home. He stopped. He had never heard her use that voice on him. Ava rubbed her face with both hands. And then, because it was midnight and dark and Marcus was 19 and harmless, and she had absolutely no one else on this earth to say it to, she said the thing out loud that she would never in 1,000 years have admitted in daylight. I don't remember the last time I won a real one. Marcus blinked. What? A fight, Marcus. A real fight. Not a demo, not a seminar, not smashing the bag for the little kids to go, whoa. Her voice was flat. I lost the regional in March. You know that. You were there. I lost the one before that. My last actual win was 14 months ago, and I had to look it up to be sure. She laughed, and there was no humor in it at all. The banner outside says national champion. That was 2 years ago. 2 years is a long time in this sport. There are girls coming up right now who would take me apart. And they know it. And the sponsors know it. And my numbers were dying, Marcus. Before tonight, my numbers were dying. And I was watching this whole thing I built just leak out slow, like air out of a tire you can't find the hole in. Marcus didn't know what to say. He was 19. Nobody had taught him what to say to this. So then some janitor's kid throws a bad punch, Ava said, and I saw 30 people who had stopped looking at me the way they used to, and I thought, there is an easy win. There is somebody I can beat in front of everybody without breaking a sweat. Somebody nobody respects. Somebody who never fights back. Her voice cracked, and she hated it, and kept going. Anyway, I didn't pick him because he was strong, Marcus. I picked him because I thought he was the weakest person in the room, because I needed one, because I couldn't remember what it felt like to be the strong one. And I thought if I could just make somebody smaller, I would feel like me again. The office was silent. And now 300,000 people are watching it, she said. And half of them are looking at that man's face and telling me I picked wrong. Coach, Marcus set his bag down, you are the best fighter I have ever seen. It's a janitor. Whatever's on his face, he's a maintenance guy. He watched YouTube. You are going to wipe the floor with him, and everybody is going to remember why you're you. Ava looked at the frozen frame on her monitor. The flannel, the trash bag. The one flat word caught on the closed captions in white letters. When? Yeah, she said, and did not believe it. Yeah, you're probably right. But after Marcus left, she sat in the dark another hour, and she did the thing she told her own students never to do the week before a fight. She got scared. Not of losing. She understood losing. Losing was a scoreboard. She got scared of something she couldn't name. A cold, flat feeling that had come off that man across the mat, like a draft under a door. And she found herself thinking over and over about the one thing that had genuinely rattled her. The thing she hadn't told Marcus. Because saying it out loud would make it real. The kid. Not the boy's bad punch. The way the boy had looked back at her from the doorway on his way out. That strange, quiet, pitying look. A 10-year-old had looked at her. The champion, the banner, the whole gym, and felt sorry for her. And children don't feel sorry for people who are about to win. Children feel sorry for people who don't know what's coming. Ava turned off the monitor. The office went black. And for the first time since she was a scared kid herself a lifetime ago, before the trophies, before the banner, before she learned that the way to never be hurt was to always be the one doing the hurting. Ava Reynolds sat alone in the dark and could not make the feeling go away. The next morning, it got worse. She came in early to open the gym, and there were 2 news vans in the parking lot. By noon, the video had crossed 1 million. By that evening, a fight promoter named Del Kasich had called the front desk 3 times, and when Ava finally picked up, he talked for 4 straight minutes about the story of the year, content gold, the everyman angle, how he wanted to help produce the event, handle the live stream, and take, of course, his cut. And Ava stood at the front counter, holding the phone, and understood with a sinking feeling that the thing she had started in a moment of cruelty on a Tuesday night was no longer hers. It belonged to the internet now. It belonged to Del Kasich and his live stream. It belonged to 1 million people who wanted a show. "I don't know if I even want to do this anymore," she heard herself say. There was a pause on the line. "Ava, sweetheart," Del's voice went smooth and terrible. "You put it out there yourself. That's your face on it. You back out now. You're not the champ who got cold feet. You're the bully who picked on a single dad and his kid and then chickened out when it went viral." Another pause, letting it land. "Right now, you're the villain people love. You quit. You're just the villain, trust me. I've seen this 100 times. The only way out is through. Saturday." Ava hung up the phone. She stood at the counter of the gym she had built, under the banner with her own face on it. And she understood that she was trapped in a room of her own making, and that the only door out of it led straight through a quiet man with old eyes and a promise she knew nothing about. Across the city, at the exact same hour, that quiet man was in a hardware store aisle with his son, buying a new washer for a leaky faucet at a customer's house. Because life did not stop for viral videos, and the rent did not care that he was a meme. And a man Daniel's age recognized him from the phone, pointed, said something to his buddy, and the 2 of them laughed, right there in the plumbing aisle, at the janitor from the video. Noah went stiff beside his father. His hand found Daniel's sleeve. "Dad, they're laughing at you again." And Daniel Carter, holding a 98-cent rubber washer, looked down at his son. And then he did something he had not done in the gym, could not have done in the gym, but could do now, here in a hardware store where nobody's dignity was on the line and no door needed opening. He smiled at his boy, an easy, real, whole smile. "Yeah," he said, "they are." "Doesn't it make you mad?" "Nope." Daniel dropped the washer in the basket. "You know why?" "Why?" "Because in 5 days," Daniel said, "not one of these people is going to matter to me even a little bit. But you are going to matter to me for the rest of my life." He put his hand on the back of Noah's neck and steered him gently toward the register. "So I have got exactly one job this week, and it's not to win a fight, and it's not to shut those 2 guys up. My one job is to figure out how to walk into that gym Saturday and come back out of it still being your dad. That's it. That's the whole thing." Noah looked up at him. "Can you do that?" And there it was again, the same question from the truck, asked a different way. The real question underneath all the other questions. Daniel didn't answer right away, because the honest answer was that he didn't know. That the door in his chest had been rattling for 2 days, that he had caught himself twice already dropping into that flat, cold place just from the idea of Saturday, and that somewhere in the back of his mind, a voice that sounded like his own younger self kept whispering that it would be so easy, and that Ava Reynolds had it coming, and that 9 years was a long time to keep a lid on anything. But you don't say that to a 10-year-old in a hardware store. "I am going to do everything I can," Daniel said. "That's a promise, and you know I keep those." Noah nodded slowly. He believed him. He had to believe him. His dad was all he had. But that night, after his father was asleep, Noah did something he had never done before in his life. He got out of bed. He went down the quiet hall. He took the shoebox down off the shelf all by himself, and he sat on the closet floor in the dark and looked at the photograph of the young man with the 100-year-old eyes. And he made a decision of his own, a 10-year-old's decision, secret and enormous and completely his. That on Saturday, no matter what happened, no matter how loud that gym got or how hard that woman came or what door started to rattle in his father's chest, Noah was going to be there where his dad could see him, right up front, where it mattered. Because his dad had said the one thing that could stop the man in the box was him. And if that was true, then it was Noah's job to make sure his father never for 1 second lost sight of the reason to stop. He put the box back exactly where it went. He went back to bed. And 2 miles away, Ava Reynolds lay awake in her own dark. And the whole city between them held its breath. And the number on the video ticked past 1.5 million, climbing toward a Saturday that was now only 4 days away. A Saturday that half the country was waiting for, and that not one single person watching understood. Because they all thought they were about to see a fight. They weren't. They were about to see a man decide, in front of everybody, what kind of father he was going to be. The 4 days between that hardware store and Saturday went the way the last days before a hard thing always go. Too slow to bear and too fast to stop, both at once. Daniel didn't train. That was the part Rachel couldn't understand. "You are not going to prepare?" she said on Thursday, standing in his garage while he changed the oil in the truck. "She's got a whole gym. She's got sparring partners. She's probably drilling combinations right now specifically designed to—" "I know exactly what she's drilling." Daniel didn't look up from the drain pan. "That is not the fight I'm worried about." "Then what are you doing?" "Sleeping, eating, taking Noah to school." He wiped his hands on a rag. "Trying to walk into Saturday as much myself as I can be, because the more of me there is in that room, the less room there is for the other guy." He capped the oil. "You don't beat that man with push-ups. You beat him by being so full of your real life that he has got nowhere to stand." Rachel didn't have an answer for that. Nobody would have. Saturday came anyway. By 6 that evening, there were people lined up outside Iron Valley Martial Arts Center. The parking lot was full. The overflow had spilled onto the grass and down the block. Del Kasich had 3 cameras set up, a 4th on a drone, a live stream counter already showing 40,000 people watching an empty gym floor. Waiting. It was worse inside. They had cleared the mats and set up folding chairs. Every chair was full. Every wall was lined. The air was hot with too many bodies, and that particular ugly electricity a crowd gets when it has come to watch somebody get hurt. People had made signs. Somebody had a foam finger. Somebody was selling bootleg t-shirts in the parking lot that said "One Punch" on the front. And Daniel had walked past a kid wearing one on his way in and hadn't said a word. He came in at 6:40, through the maintenance door he had used for 8 months, the door only he knew about. And for a second, he just stood in the boiler hallway, in the one part of the building that was his. He closed his eyes and breathed. Noah was next to him. "You still sure about this?" Daniel asked him quietly. "You could wait in the truck. Rachel's right out front, no shame in it. This is going to get loud." "You said I could be up front," Noah said. "You said I did." "Then I am up front." The boy's jaw was set exactly like his father's. "I am going to be right where you can see me, the whole time." "Okay, look for me. When it gets bad, you look for me." And Daniel Carter crouched down in that boiler hallway. In front of 40,000 people he couldn't see, and one 10-year-old he could. And he took his son's face in both hands. "You are the smartest person I know," he said. "You know that. You always say that. Because it keeps being true." He stood, took a breath. "All right, let's go say hello to the nice lady." They walked out onto the floor together, and the gym lost its mind. The noise hit them like a wall. Boos and cheers all mixed together, phones going up in a wave, Del Kasich's voice booming over a PA system nobody had asked for. "And here he is, folks, the man of the hour!" And Daniel didn't hear the rest, because he was scanning the room the way he couldn't stop himself from scanning any room. Cataloging exits, counting bodies, and hating that he was doing it and unable to stop. Ava was already out there. She stood in the center of the cleared floor in full fight gear, gloves on, hair back, and she was bouncing on her toes the way fighters do. Loose, warm, ready. She looked like exactly what she was, a professional in her element, in her house. And when she saw Daniel come out in a plain gray t-shirt and track pants and old wrestling shoes, no gloves, no wraps, carrying nothing, she felt the crowd's energy pour into her. And she grinned, and she leaned into it, because this was the part she knew how to do. "You came," she called over the noise. "I honestly wasn't sure. Half the city had money on you running." "I said I would be here," Daniel said. He said it too quietly for most of the room to hear, but the cameras caught it. And something about the flatness of it made Del Kasich, watching his own monitor, get a little chill. He chose to ignore it. "Okay, here is how this works." Del had the mic. "Ava has agreed, out of the goodness of her heart, to give our challenger the terms he demanded on Tuesday. 1 punch for the janitor. She comes at him with everything. He gets 1 shot to land." Del paused for the crowd. 1 punch. If he lands it clean, she publicly apologizes, and he walks out of here a hero. Bigger pause. If he doesn't, well, we all saw what we came to see. The crowd roared. Daniel stood in the middle of it and looked at Ava. And Ava looked back at Daniel. And for one strange beat in all that noise, the two of them were the only quiet things in the room. "Last chance," Ava said, low, just to him, off mic. And there was something almost human in her face when she said it. A flicker of the woman who had sat in the dark office, scared of a 10-year-old's pity. "You can still walk. I will take the heat. I will tell them I called it off. You don't have to." "You keep offering me the exit," Daniel said, "because I don't understand why you won't take it." "I know," Daniel said. "That is the whole problem with you. And it is not your fault. And I am not going to fix it in the next 10 seconds. He rolled his shoulders once, loose. "Let's just do this." Ava's face hardened. The human flicker went out. Whatever door she had, she closed it. And she stepped back to her mark and put her hands up, and became the champion again. Because the champion was the only person she knew how to be when she was frightened. "Fighters ready," Del bellowed. Daniel found Noah in the front row. The boy was standing on his chair so his father could see him over the crowd, Rachel's hands on his shoulders. And Noah gave his dad one small nod. "I'm here. Look for me." Daniel nodded back. "Fight!" Ava came off her mark like a bullet. She was fast, faster than the crowd expected, faster than the video had made her look. 2 years of losing be damned, because whatever had slipped away from Ava Reynolds, it wasn't her hands. She opened with a combination that would have finished most men on earth. Jab, cross, low kick, hook. Clean, sharp, championship level, the whole gym gasping at the speed of it. And every single strike hit air. Because Daniel wasn't there. He hadn't blocked, he hadn't countered, he had simply moved. A half step, a shoulder roll, a slide of the hips. And Ava's beautiful combination sailed past him by inches, past his ear, past his ribs, past nothing. And she was suddenly a full step past where he had been standing, off balance for a quarter second, throwing punches at the ghost of a man. The crowd's roar stumbled. Ava reset instantly. Too good to fall for her own frustration this early. And came again, faster. Then the real shot. A right hand aimed at his jaw, with everything behind it. Daniel tilted his head 1 inch, and it went by. "What?" somebody screamed in the crowd. "What was that?" Ava threw again. Missed. Threw again. Missed. And now the crowd's noise was changing, curdling, because they had come to watch a champion take apart a janitor, and instead, they were watching a janitor make a champion look like she was punching underwater. And he wasn't even hitting back. He wasn't doing anything. He was just not there. 20 seconds in, Ava stopped, stepped back, breathing harder than she should have been. "Stand still," she said. It came out before she could stop it. "You want me to make it easy for you," Daniel said. "I am not going to do that. You are just running." She was angry now, and the crowd could hear it, and that made her angrier. "That's not fighting, you're dancing. You said you would fight me." "I never said that." Daniel's hands were still down at his sides. He had not raised them once. "You said one punch. I am waiting for the right one. You want to throw combinations for an hour? I will be here." "You will get tired long before I do." And in the front row, standing on his chair, Noah Carter felt his heart start to pound. Not with fear, with something else. Something dawning. Because he was watching his father do the exact thing his father had described in the kitchen. He wasn't fighting. He was controlling. He was running the whole thing without throwing a single punch, like a man walking a big dog on a short leash. And the dog didn't even know it was on a leash yet. "He is not even trying to win," Noah breathed. "What?" Rachel said. "He is not trying to win, Aunt Rachel. Look." "He could hit her. See, he could have hit her right there and there. He's not. He is just showing everybody she can't touch him." Noah's eyes were wide. He is making a point without hurting her. That's the third thing. That's the thing he was looking for. Rachel looked at the floor and looked at her nephew, and realized the 10-year-old had understood the fight faster than she had. But out on the mat, Ava Reynolds had reached the exact place that Daniel had been quietly, deliberately, mercifully, trying to keep her away from. She had been made to look like a fool. In her own house, in front of her own students, on a live stream 45,000 people were watching. Every missed punch was a fresh humiliation. And humiliation for Ava had only ever had one antidote her whole life. The same one she had reached for on Tuesday with the 10-year-old. The same one she reached for now. She stopped boxing. She threw technique out the window. And she came at Daniel Carter, not like a champion, but like a cornered animal. Wild, headlong, everything she had. A berserk flurry with no plan behind it except to land something. Land anything. Make him feel it. Make him stop making her look like this. And in all that chaos, she got lucky. Her elbow, not even a punch, an elbow thrown wide and desperate on the way back from a missed hook, clipped Daniel across the eyebrow. It wasn't a hard shot. In the grand accounting of things, it was nothing, a graze, a scrape. But it split the skin the way eyebrows do, and a line of red opened up over Daniel's eye. And a single drop of his own blood ran down and touched the corner of his eye. And he felt the warm wet of it, and the room changed. Later, nobody who was there could agree on exactly what they saw. Some said it was his stance, some said it was his hands, which came up for the first time all night, slow and settled into a position that was nothing like boxing, nothing like anything the gym had ever taught. But everybody agreed on the eyes. Everybody agreed that the tired, mild, patient man who had been dancing away from a champion for 40 seconds was suddenly, between one breath and the next, not there anymore. And that something else was looking out of Daniel Carter's face, something flat and calm and terribly, terribly still. And that the temperature of the entire room seemed to drop 10 degrees. The door was open. Daniel felt it go. The way you feel a car start to slide on ice. That sick, weightless instant where your own hands stop being fully your own. The blood, the noise, the humiliated woman throwing everything at his son's dignity. 45,000 strangers howling for someone to bleed. It hit the lock all at once, and 9 years of welding gave way, and the cold, flat place opened up underneath him like a trapdoor, and he dropped into it, and God help him. It felt like coming home. The world went slow and quiet and bright. He could see everything. He could see Ava's next punch before she threw it. He could see the whole architecture of her, every opening, every place she was soft, and his body was already moving to answer it with an economy and a viciousness that had nothing to do with the man who mopped these floors. And there was a voice down in that cold place. His own voice, younger, saying, "There you are. I missed you. This is what you are for." His hand shot out. He caught Ava's wrist mid-strike. He didn't grab it. That's not the right word for what people saw. He took it. The way you take a doorknob. Casual and total. And Ava Reynolds, national champion, 2 years running, fastest hands the gym had ever produced, found that her arm simply would not move. She pulled, it didn't come. She twisted, it didn't come. She was suddenly, completely, horrifyingly helpless, held in place by a maintenance worker's single hand. And for the first time in her adult life, Ava Reynolds looked into another person's eyes and understood that she was not the most dangerous thing in the room, and that she never had been, and that the man in front of her could do anything he wanted to her in the next 2 seconds. And there was not one single thing she could do to stop it. The gym went dead silent. 45,000 people on the live stream, 200 in the room. The foam finger, the one-punch shirts, Del Kasich with his mouth open and his mic forgotten. All of it, silent. Because every animal in that building had felt the same thing at the same time. The thing children and dogs feel first, the thing that runs underneath all our civilization. The recognition of a genuine predator. Ava didn't breathe. Daniel's grip was iron, his eyes were empty. His free hand had come back loaded, and everyone in the front 3 rows saw where it was going, and understood in a collective sick lurch that they had gotten exactly what they came for, and that it was going to be so much worse than they wanted. And in that frozen half-second, in the deepest part of the cold, flat place where Daniel Carter had gone, where the younger man was welcoming him home, where nothing existed but the target and the geometry and the terrible ease of it, a voice cut through. "Dad." One word. Noah's voice, high and cracked and terrified, ringing out across the dead-silent gym from a 10-year-old standing on a folding chair in the front row. "Dad, look at me. Look at me. I'm right here." And Daniel Carter stopped. The loaded hand hung in the air. Down in the cold place, the younger voice snarled at him to finish it. And the cold place had held him for years, and it did not want to let go. And for one endless instant, the whole thing hung in the balance. The man in the box and the man in the room. Both of them wearing the same face, fighting over a single hand that hovered 1 inch from a helpless woman. "Look for me. When it gets bad, look for me." Daniel looked. He turned his head, and through the roaring silence and the red haze and the 9 years of welded door blown open, he found his son's face in the front row. Noah, standing on the chair, Noah crying, terrified, not running, not hiding, keeping the promise he had made himself in the dark on the closet floor, being right there up front where his father could see him, being the reason, making sure his dad never for 1 second lost sight of the reason to stop. And the boy wasn't looking at a monster. That was the thing that pulled Daniel all the way back. Noah wasn't looking at him with the horror everyone else in the gym was wearing. He was looking at his father with a desperate, drowning, total love. The look of a kid who had already lost his mom and was watching in real time to see whether he was about to lose his dad too. Whether the man in the box was going to eat the man who read him bedtime stories, and who was screaming across a room full of strangers the only thing he had, the only rope he could throw. "I'm right here. I'm right here. Come back to me." And Daniel Carter came back. He felt it happen. He felt himself climb up out of the cold, flat place, hand over hand. Felt the trap door swing shut. Felt the room come back to normal speed and normal temperature. Felt his own heart start hammering with a delayed terror at how close it had been. How close. And he opened his hand. He let Ava's wrist go. She stumbled back a step, cradling her arm, staring at him. And she wasn't the champion anymore. And he wasn't the predator anymore. And for one long moment, the two of them just stood there in the middle of 200 people. Both of them breathing hard, both of them shaking a little. Both of them having just seen all the way to the bottom of what the other one really was. Daniel stepped back. He put his hands down. He wiped the blood out of his eye with the back of his wrist, and it smeared across his temple, and he didn't seem to notice. He was still looking at his son. "I'm here, bud," he said. His voice was low. It carried in the silence to every corner of the room. "I'm okay. I'm here." Noah got down off the chair, and he ran, right out onto the fighting floor, past the cameras, past Del Kasich, past every rule of the event that nobody was enforcing anymore. And he slammed into his father's chest and wrapped his arms around him and held on. And Daniel Carter dropped to one knee on the mat and held his boy in front of everybody and put his bloody face down into his son's hair. And the gym, the whole howling, sign-waving, blood-hungry gym, did not make a sound. Because they had come to see a fight. They had come to see a janitor humiliated or a champion embarrassed. Come to pick a side and scream for a winner. And instead, on a live stream 45,000 people were watching. They had just seen a man arrive at the absolute edge of the worst thing he could do. Everyone had seen it. Everyone had felt it. There was no pretending it hadn't been right there. And then they had watched a 10-year-old's voice pull him back from it. They had watched the strongest man any of them had ever seen choose, in front of all of them, at the exact moment he had every reason and every right and every ability not to stop. Ava Reynolds stood alone in the middle of her own gym, holding her wrist, watching a father hold his son, and something in her chest that had been frozen solid for a very long time cracked straight down the middle. She had wanted to feel like the strong one again. She had gone looking for the weakest person in the room to prove it on. And she had just watched up close, closer than anyone, the single strongest act she had ever witnessed in her life. And it wasn't the grip that could have broken her arm. It was the open hand that didn't. Del Kasich, off to the side, was frantically gesturing at his cameraman, mouthing, "Are you getting this?" Because the number on his live stream had just detonated past 100,000. And climbing. So fast the counter couldn't keep up. Del had come to sell a fight, and accidentally broadcast something real. But the man he was filming didn't know he was on camera anymore. Daniel Carter knelt on the mat with his son in his arms and his own blood drying on his face. And he was not thinking about 45,000 strangers, or a viral video, or Del Kasich, or even, in that moment, about Ava Reynolds. He was thinking about a promise he had made at a hospital bed a year ago. Promise me he never meets that man. Promise me our son never once has to be afraid of you. And he had come so close. He had come one syllable, one heartbeat, one small, brave voice away from breaking it. In front of 200 people, the door had blown wide open, and the man in the box had gotten one hand free. But the man in the box had not gotten his son, because his son had reached into the fire and pulled him out. "You looked for me," Noah said into his father's chest, muffled, crying. "You were gone for a second. Your eyes went all, but I said, 'Look at me.' And you looked, and you came back. You came back, Dad." "I came back." "You're not going to—" Noah pulled back enough to see his father's face, needing to be sure, needing it more than he had ever needed anything. "You're still you, right now. You're still my dad." Daniel Carter looked at his son, and the tears that came down his face mixed with the blood from his eyebrow. And he did not care who saw. In a room of 200 strangers and 45,000 more behind the glass of a phone. Because there was only one person in the entire world whose opinion of him had ever mattered. And that person was 10 years old and holding on to his shirt like the floor might give way. "I'm still your dad," Daniel said. "I am always going to be your dad. That's the one thing nothing gets to take. You hear me? That is the one thing I will never, ever let go of. And in the silence of that gym, with the live stream counter spinning, and the champion standing broken and amazed a few feet away, and the whole city about to wake up to a video that was going to mean something completely different than anyone expected, a father and a son held on to each other in the middle of the floor. And the blood dried, and the noise stayed gone. And not one single person in that room could have told you any more who was supposed to have won. Because the fight was over, and nobody had thrown a second punch. The gym emptied out slower than it had filled. That was the strangest part, and the part people talked about afterward. A crowd that comes to see usually leaves fast when it doesn't get what it came for, loud and let down, already on to the next thing. But this crowd didn't do that. They filed out quiet. Some of them didn't file out at all. They stood along the walls a long time after it was over, watching a father hold his son on the mat, like they couldn't quite figure out how to walk away from a thing they didn't have a name for yet. Del Kasich figured it out fast enough. Del was already on his phone by the door, pacing, talking too loud. No, listen to me. It's better than a knockout. Trust me. The numbers we're at 200,000 live and it's still climbing. People are clipping it. The kid part especially. The dad look at me part. That's the clip. He shouldered out into the parking lot after his signal, and the door swung shut behind him. And just like that, the loudest man in the building was gone, which left the floor very quiet. Daniel got to his feet, one hand still on Noah's shoulder. Rachel had come out onto the mat by then, doing the thing sisters do, running her hands over his face, tilting his head to see the split eyebrow. You need stitches. That needs a butterfly at least. Look at me. Does your vision? And Daniel let her, because it gave her something to do, because he could see she was shaking worse than he was. I'm fine, Ra. You are not fine. I saw your face. She dropped her voice so only he could hear it. I saw the door open, Danny. I saw it open all the way. I know. And I saw him close it. Daniel looked down at his son, who would not let go of a fistful of his shirt this entire time. Yeah, he said quietly. So did I. And that would have been the moment to leave. Get the boy, get the truck, get home, ice the eye, be done with all of it. Daniel had already turned toward the back hallway, toward his own door, the maintenance door, the exit that belonged to him. Wait. The word came from behind him, from the middle of the floor. And it was small, and it did not sound like a champion at all. Daniel stopped. Ava Reynolds was still standing where he had let her go. She hadn't moved. She had her gloves off now. She had pulled them off with her teeth. One and then the other, and dropped them on the mat. And she was holding her own wrist, the one he had caught. Not because it was hurt, but because she needed something to hold on to. And her face, the face that had been on the banner and the flyers and the telephone poles, the face that had never once in 200 people's memory looked uncertain about anything, was completely undone. I need to say something, Ava said, and I need to say it now before I lose my nerve, because if I don't say it right now, I am never going to say it. I know myself. The people still lined along the walls went still. A few phones came back up. Ava saw them, and remarkably, didn't seem to care. And that not caring was the first genuinely new thing Ava Reynolds had done in years. You had my arm, she said to Daniel. Her voice was unsteady, but she pushed it out anyway. Everybody here saw it. You had my arm, and your other hand was loaded, and I need to be honest about this. In front of everybody, because they were all here. She swallowed. There was nothing I could do, nothing. In my whole life, I have never once been in a spot where there was nothing I could do. And you put me there in about 1 second. And then her voice caught. She fought it. And then you let go. Ava, no, let me, please. She wiped her face with the back of her hand, angry at her own tears the way he had been angry at his. I have been telling myself a story my whole life. The story is that being strong means nobody can ever touch you. Nobody can ever hurt you. Nobody can ever laugh at you. Nobody can ever make you feel small, because you get to them first. You be the scariest one in the room, and then you are safe. She laughed, wet and broken. I built a whole gym on it. I put my face on a banner over it, and on Tuesday, I looked around a room and I picked out the one person I thought I could make smallest so I could feel biggest. And it was a kid practicing punches in a corner. And his dad in his work clothes. She stopped. She turned, and she found Noah, still pressed against his father, watching her with those wide, unreadable 10-year-old eyes. "Hey," she said, and her voice fell apart completely. "Hey, buddy, I need to say this to you most of all, okay? I need you to hear it from me." She took a breath. "What I said to you on Tuesday, about your punch, about your dad, about the mop, that was the meanest thing I have ever said to another human being. And I said it to a kid in front of a whole room to make people laugh." She was crying openly now. "And you didn't do a single thing to deserve it. Not one. You were just a boy in a corner waiting for his father. And I picked you because I thought you couldn't fight back. That is the worst thing I know about myself, and I did it in front of everybody, so I am going to own it in front of everybody." Her voice broke on the last word. "I am so sorry. I am so sorry." The gym was silent. Noah looked up at his dad. Some question passed between them that didn't need words. And Daniel gave the smallest nod. "Your call, bud. Whatever you want to do here is right." And Noah Carter, 10 years old, stepped away from his father and walked out across the empty fighting floor toward the woman who had humiliated him, and stopped in front of her and looked up at her for a long moment. "My mom died last year," Noah said. Ava's breath went out of her like she had been hit. I know that doesn't have anything to do with..." The boy's chin trembled, but he kept talking. "My dad's the only one I got left, and when you were laughing at him, I got scared. Because I thought maybe he really was weak, and if he was weak, then I didn't have anybody." He wiped his nose. "And then he said when, and I got even more scared, but for a different reason, and I didn't understand any of it until my dad showed me the box." A pause. "You made my dad almost turn into somebody he promised my mom he'd never be. Right here, everybody saw. That's what you almost did." Ava couldn't speak. She just nodded, taking it, every word, because she had earned every word. But Noah said he didn't. He came back, and he came back because of me. The boy squared his small shoulders. "So I am not going to be mean to you back, because my dad says you don't get stronger by making somebody else weaker. And if I am mean to you now, then I am just doing the same thing you did. And then what was the whole point?" He stuck out his hand, the way he had seen grown-ups do. "So I forgive you, okay? But you got to actually be different now, not just say it. My mom used to say, saying sorry is just the first half, and the second half is way harder." Ava Reynolds looked down at a 10-year-old's outstretched hand, and the national kickboxing champion, 2 years running, the fastest hands the gym had ever produced, the woman who had never lost a fight that mattered, sank down onto her knees on her own mat, so she could be level with a boy who had been afraid of losing his only remaining parent. And she took his small hand in both of hers, and she broke completely. "Deal," she managed. "Second half's on me. I swear it. Deal." Along the walls, somebody was crying. More than one somebody. Rachel had her hand over her mouth. And on the live stream, that had now passed 250,000 people watching in cities all over the country, strangers who had come to laugh at a janitor were sitting in the blue light of their phones with their throats tight, watching a kid forgive the person who had hurt him and make her promise to do better. And not one of them could have said exactly when it had stopped being about a fight. Daniel came across the floor. He crouched down next to his son, next to the kneeling champion. And for a second, the three of them were down there together, in the middle of that big empty room. And Daniel Carter, who had said almost nothing this entire night, finally spoke. Quiet. Just for the three of them, though the cameras caught it anyway. "You want to know why I said when?" he said to Ava. "You kept asking me all week in your head. I could see it."
Why didn't he just walk? Why didn't he just take the joke?
He looked at his son, then back at her. "Because I could have walked. That was easy. I have walked away from worse than you 1,000 times. That is not brave, that is just Tuesday." He paused. "And I could have hit you. That was even easier." "You have no idea how easy that was, and I will be honest with you. Part of me wanted to. Part of me still does. That never fully goes away." His jaw worked. "But my boy was watching, and if I walk, he learns his dad is a coward. And if I destroy you, he learns that the answer to somebody being cruel is to become something worse than they are." He shook his head slowly. "And I have been the worst thing, Ava. I have lived down in that. I know exactly what is down there. And I did not claw my way out of it over 10 years so my son could take a running jump into it at 10. Ava was listening like her life depended on it. "So I needed a third way," Daniel said. "I needed to show him you can be strong enough to end it and choose not to. That the choosing is the strong part, not the ending, the choosing." He shook his head slowly. "I didn't know if I could pull it off. Honest to God, 20 seconds ago I wasn't sure I did. If he hadn't yelled—" He stopped. He didn't finish it. He didn't have to. "Anyway, that's why I said when, not to fight you, to teach him. You just happened to be the lesson." He stood back up, and he offered Ava his hand. The same hand that had held her wrist 20 minutes ago. The same hand that had been loaded and empty and terrible. Now just a hand. Open. Offered. "You are talented," Daniel said. "You are one of the most talented fighters I have ever stood across from, and I have stood across from some. That was never your problem." He nodded down at his son. "Your problem is you thought the point of being strong was so nobody could ever make you feel small. But that is backwards. Being strong isn't about what you can do to people who are weaker than you." He nodded down at Noah. "It is about what you don't do when you easily could." He looked at her steadily. "Everybody in this room just watched me almost fail at that, and watched a 10-year-old save me. So don't kneel there thinking I am some kind of saint who is better than you. I am not. I am just a guy who is terrified of what he is doing his best not to be it. One day at a time." He paused. "Same as anybody. Same as you can be, starting now. If you actually want it." Ava took his hand. He pulled her up off the mat, and for a second, the two of them stood there. And it was such a different thing than the crowd had come to see. No winner's arm raised, no loser on the ground. Just two people who had seen the worst of each other, standing on level feet. "Thank you," Ava said. It came us barely above a whisper. "For stopping. And for not letting me off the hook either. Both of those, thank you." "Thank him," Daniel said, nodding at Noah. "I just showed up. He's the one who did the hard part." And that right there, on a live stream 250,000 people deep, is the moment that video became something else entirely. Because Del Kasich had come back inside by then. And Del, for all his greed, for all the ways he had tried to turn a man's pain into content, had a camera pointed at exactly the right place at exactly the right time. And what it captured wasn't a fight. It was a maintenance worker refusing credit, handing it to a 10-year-old, in front of a woman he had just forgiven. And that clip, that 30-second clip, was already being carved out and reposted and captioned and sent from phone to phone across the country. But nobody in that gym knew that yet. Nobody was thinking about numbers anymore, except Del. "Hospital, now." Rachel came and got Daniel's arm. "I am not asking." "It's a scratch, Ra. It is 4 stitches minimum, and you are getting them. And Noah and I are going to sit in the waiting room and eat the terrible vending machine pretzels." And that's the whole plan. And I don't want to hear about it. Her voice cracked on the last word, and Daniel understood that she wasn't really talking about stitches at all. She was talking about the door she had watched open, and the 9 years she had spent afraid of this exact night, and the fact that her brother had walked up to the edge of losing himself in front of everyone, and had walked back. "Please," she said, "just let me take care of you for 1 hour. Just let me." "Okay," Daniel said gently. "Okay, Ra. Terrible pretzels. You got it." They started toward the door, the three of them, and Ava's voice stopped them one more time. "Daniel." He turned. "The kid." Ava had picked her gloves back up off the mat, and she was holding them, not putting them on, just holding them. "Noah, if he ever, if you ever wanted, I would teach him. For real, not the way I teach now. The other way, the way you just showed me." She swallowed. "For free, forever, if he wanted. No pressure, I owe him a whole lot more than an apology, and I don't know how else to start paying it." Daniel looked at her a long moment. "That is not up to me," he said, and he looked down at his son. "Bud, you want to learn to fight?" And Noah Carter thought about it, really thought about it, the way he thought about everything, turning it over. And then he looked up at Ava Reynolds and asked the single most important question a 10-year-old has ever asked in the middle of a mostly empty gym. "Would you teach me the thing my dad did?" Noah said. "Not the punching part. I want to learn that too, I guess. But the other thing, the stopping. Can you even teach that?" Ava Reynolds opened her mouth to answer and found she couldn't, because it was the exact question she had been asking herself since the moment his father let go of her wrist. And she didn't have the answer yet. And she was honest enough now, for the first time in years, not to fake one. "I don't know," she said. "I really don't know if you can teach that. But I will tell you what." She crouched down in front of him again. "You and me can try to figure it out together, because I need to learn it too. Turns out I never did. So how about we learn it at the same time, you and me, and your dad can tell us when we are getting it wrong." "Deal." Noah looked at his dad. Daniel nodded. "Deal," Noah said, and shook her hand a second time. And this time there was even a small 10-year-old smile in it, and they left. The four of them, almost, Daniel and Noah and Rachel and Ava, a few steps behind, walking them out to the parking lot. Because she couldn't quite bring herself to let them go through the front door alone into the crowd that was still out there, the news vans lit them up. People shouted questions. Somebody yelled Daniel's name like he was famous now. Which he was, though he didn't know it and wouldn't have wanted it. Daniel didn't answer any of them. He just put Noah up into the truck and got the boy buckled and came around to the driver's side, and only then, with his hand on the door, did he stop and look back at the gym one time. Ava was standing under the banner, her own face 20 feet tall, smiling down over her shoulder. The champion, the one who proved it, the two kinds of people. And underneath it stood the actual woman, small and wrung out and changed, watching a maintenance worker's truck about to pull away. And Daniel could see, even from across the lot, that she was going to have to figure out how to become a person who deserved to stand under that banner. And that it was going to be the hardest fight of her life, harder than any regional, harder than any belt. He lifted one hand to her, just once. Not a wave exactly, more like an acknowledgement. You can do it. It's hard, and you can do it, and nobody's coming to do it for you. Ava lifted her hand back, and Daniel got in the truck. Inside, the heater took its time the way it always did. Rachel climbed in the back. Noah sat in the middle with his backpack in his lap. Even though there was no school, holding it the way he held it when he needed something to hold. The parking lot lights washed across the windshield, and the noise of the crowd faded as Daniel pulled out onto the road. For 4 blocks, nobody said anything. Then Noah said quietly, "Dad? Yeah, bud?" When your eyes went empty back there, when the door opened. The boy was looking straight ahead, out the windshield. "Were you scared?" Daniel drove a while before he answered. He watched a light turn yellow and eased the truck to a stop. Instead of running it, same as always. The safe choice made so many times, it had stopped looking like a choice. "Yeah," he said, "more scared than I have been in a long, long time." "Of her?" "No, Bud." He looked over at his son. "Of me. I am always a little scared of me. That is kind of the point. The day I stop being scared of what I could do is the day I actually become it." The light went green. He pulled through. Gentle, unhurried. "You want to know the truth? A man who isn't a little bit afraid of himself is a dangerous thing. The fear is not the weakness, Noah. The fear is the guardrail. You remember that. Anybody ever tells you they are not afraid of anything, you keep an eye on that person." Noah nodded slowly, filing it away in whatever place 10-year-olds keep the things that will matter to them for the next 50 years. "I wasn't scared," Noah said. "No, I mean I was, but when I yelled, I wasn't scared you'd hurt me. I knew you wouldn't hurt me. I was scared you'd hurt you." He turned in his seat. "Like, I was scared you'd do something, and then you'd have to be the guy in the box for the rest of your life, and you'd be sad about it forever. And it wouldn't be the lady's fault. It would feel like it was your fault, even though she started it, and I didn't want you to have to carry that." He looked back out the windshield. "So I yelled. I wasn't saving her, I was saving you." The truck was very quiet. In the back seat, Rachel had gone completely still. One hand pressed flat against her own chest. And Daniel Carter, driving his son home through the wet Denver dark, with 4 stitches waiting for him, and a viral video he didn't know about yet, climbing past 300,000, and a whole new life about to arrive that he couldn't see coming. Daniel had to pull the truck over. He put it in park on the shoulder under a streetlight, and he sat there with both hands on the wheel for a second. And then he turned and pulled his son across the bench seat into a hug so hard and so sudden that Noah's backpack fell into the footwell. "What?" Noah said, half laughing, muffled against his father's shoulder. "What did I do?" "Nothing," Daniel said. His voice wasn't working right. "You didn't do anything. You did everything. You saved me, Bud. You have been saving me every single day for a year, and I don't think I ever said it out loud, so I am saying it now." He held him tighter. "You saved me. You are the reason there is still a me to save." Noah didn't fully understand it. He was 10. He would understand it when he was 30, and again when he was 50. And again the first time he held a child of his own and felt the size of what a father carries. But he understood enough. He understood that his dad needed to hold him right then more than his dad needed to keep driving. And so he stayed, and he let himself be held. Under a streetlight on the shoulder of a wet road, and he said the only thing there was to say. "I love you, Dad. I love you too, Bud. More than the whole world. More than anything in it." And in the back seat, Rachel Carter quietly cried into her sleeve and did not say a word. Because some moments belong to 2 people, and the kindest thing a third person can do is pretend they can't hear. After a while, Daniel wiped his face and put the truck back in drive and pulled off the shoulder. And they went on toward the hospital and the terrible vending machine pretzels and the 4 stitches and the rest of their life. Behind them, across the whole city, phones were lighting up in the dark, one after another after another. 250,000 becoming 500,000, becoming something no one had a number for yet. As a 30-second clip of a maintenance worker giving all the credit to his son spread out across the country like a light coming on in house after house after house, and every single person who watched it felt the same thing that they had just seen. For once in a world that mostly showed them the opposite, what it actually looked like when the strongest person in the room was the one who chose not to prove it. By Monday morning, the video had a name. Nobody had planned it. Somebody online had clipped the 30 seconds of Daniel handing the credit to his son and captioned it, "The Strongest Man in the Room." And that title stuck. the way true things stick. And by the time Daniel Carter woke up on Monday, with 4 stitches over his eye and a customer's leaky faucet still on his to-do list, 11 million people had watched a maintenance worker refuse to take credit for the bravest thing any of them had seen all year. Daniel found out the way he found out most things. From Noah, over cereal. Dad. Noah had Rachel's old phone, the one she let him use for games, and he was staring at it with his spoon frozen halfway to his mouth. Dad, you have to look at this. Eat your breakfast. Dad, there's 11 million. 11 million what? Noah turned the phone around. Daniel looked at it the way he looked at a spider in the corner of a room. Calmly, with a plan to relocate it. Without much interest in its opinions. He saw himself on the screen, kneeling on the mat, saying, "Thank him. I just showed up." He saw a number under it that had too many digits to be about him, and he set down his coffee, and did something Noah had never seen his father do about anything. He laughed. Not a big laugh, a short one, surprised out of him, a little disbelieving. 11 million people, Daniel said, watched me fix a mistake I almost made. That's a funny world, bud. You do the wrong thing loud enough, nobody cares. You almost do the wrong thing and catch yourself, they build you a statue. He shook his head and picked his coffee back up. Eat your cereal, you have got school. Fame doesn't do your multiplication tables. But it wasn't quite that simple, and both of them knew it. Because the phone had been ringing since 7 a.m., and it kept ringing. The first call Daniel actually took was from a man named Peterson, the owner of Iron Valley, the man who signed the checks, who Daniel had met exactly twice in 8 months, who had never once learned the name of the guy who mopped his floors. Peterson was calling now, and Peterson was very warm. "Daniel, Dan. Can I call you Dan? I feel like after this weekend I can call you Dan. Listen, I have been thinking. That whole thing on Saturday, that is the best thing that ever happened to this place. Our sign-up page crashed. Crashed! We are getting calls from 3 states. His voice went smooth. And I got to thinking, a man with your background, your story, you shouldn't be pushing a mop. That's a waste. I want to bring you on. Instructor. Real salary. Your face on the... Well, we would have to redo the banner, but... No, Daniel said. There was a pause. I appreciate it, Daniel said, but no, I don't want my face on anything. I don't want to be an instructor. And with respect, Mr. Peterson, you didn't want to talk to me on Friday, and the only thing that changed between Friday and today is a number on a phone. And I don't build my life around numbers on phones. He said it without heat, the way he said everything. I will keep cleaning your gym if you will have me. I am good at it. And it is honest, and it lets me pick my boy up from school. But that is the job I want. That is the whole job. Another pause. Longer. You are turning down an instructor position, Peterson said slowly, to keep mopping the floors. I am turning down being a face on a banner, Daniel said, to keep being a father with a steady schedule. Those are not the same thing to me. Even if they look the same to you. And he hung up. Rachel, who had heard the whole thing from across the kitchen, stared at him. Danny, that was real money. That was... You could stop worrying about... I know what it was. Then why? Because the second I put my face on that banner, I am the fight guy. I am the guy from the video. And Noah is the fight guy's kid. Daniel rinsed his mug. And I spent a year making sure that is not who we are. I am not going to trade it away for a raise the first Monday somebody offers me one. He set the mug down. That is not strength, Ra. That is just a different way of losing the thing I was protecting. Rachel didn't argue. She had stopped arguing with her brother about this kind of thing a long time ago, because he was almost always right in a way that took her a few days to catch up to. But that wasn't the end of it. Because there was one part of the whole viral wave that Daniel could not simply hang up on, and it arrived on Tuesday, exactly 1 week after the night it all started. in the form of a woman at his front door he did not expect. Ava Reynolds stood on the porch in ordinary clothes, jeans, a jacket, no gym gear, no cameras, holding a covered dish like she had come to a wake, looking more nervous than she had looked with her arm caught in his hand. "I made lasagna," she blurted, before he could even say hello. "I don't know why I made lasagna. I don't really cook. I just felt like I couldn't show up with nothing, and I panicked, and I made lasagna, so here." She thrusted at him. "It might be bad. I have never actually made one before." Daniel took the dish. "You want to come in? Can I? Is Noah?" "Noah," Daniel called over his shoulder. "You have got a visitor." And Noah came around the corner and stopped and looked at the champion standing in his doorway, holding nothing now, because his dad had the lasagna. And there was a moment, a real moment, a held breath, where nobody knew which way it was going to go. Then Noah said, "Did you actually come to teach me, or did you just say that in front of everybody?" Which was the most 10-year-old question in the history of the world, and it broke the tension clean in half, and Ava laughed, a startled, grateful, watery laugh. "I actually came to teach you," she said. "I have been thinking about it all week. If you still want. And I meant what I said, free, forever. But I need to tell you something first, and I need your dad to hear it too, because it is important." They sat at the kitchen table, the same table where a shoebox had sat a week ago. Daniel put coffee on. Noah sat across from Ava with his hands folded like he was in a meeting, which, in a way, he was. "I went back and I watched the whole thing," Ava said. "Not the clip everybody is sharing, the whole fight, all of it. And I made myself watch the part where I lost it, where I stopped boxing and just came at your dad like an animal because I couldn't stand being made to look stupid." She wrapped both hands around her coffee mug. "And I realized something that scared me. That thing your dad has, the door, the place he goes that he is afraid of. I have one too. It is not as bad as his. I have never been where he has been. I have never had to do what he had to do. But it is the same kind of thing." Her voice tightened. "It is the place I go when my ego is on the line, and I stop caring who I hurt to protect it. And I have been living in that place for years and calling it competitiveness, calling it being a champion." She paused. "I have been the guy in the box this whole time. I just had a nicer box. It had trophies in it." The kitchen was quiet. Daniel didn't say anything. He just let her get there. "So here is the thing I have to say before I teach your kid anything." Ava turned to Noah. "I am not going to teach you to fight so you can win. There are 100 gyms that will teach you that. I am going to teach you to fight so that someday, if you are ever standing over somebody and you could end it, you will have practiced 10,000 times the muscle it takes to stop. Because that muscle is real, Noah." Her voice steadied. "Your dad's had 30 years to build it, and it still almost failed him Saturday. So we start you now. We start you at 10, and by the time you are a man, stopping won't be the hardest thing you ever do. It will just be who you are." She swallowed. "That is the only kind of fighting I want to teach anybody ever again, and you are going to be my first student in it, if you will have me." Noah looked at his dad. Daniel looked back at him, and there was something in his face. Pride and grief and hope, all braided together. "That is up to you, bud. Always been up to you." "Okay," Noah said to Ava. "But my dad watches every time. He says when we are getting it wrong." "Every time," Ava agreed. "I already promised him that Saturday. I will promise it again as many times as you want." "Okay, then." Noah stuck out his hand, for the 3rd time in a week. "Deal." And that handshake. The 3rd one, the real one, the one with no crowd and no cameras and no live stream. Just 3 people at a kitchen table and a lasagna nobody had tried yet. That was the handshake that actually mattered. The other 2 had been for the world. This one was for them. 3 months later. Iron Valley Martial Arts Center was a different place. Not overnight. Change like that never happens overnight. and anybody who tells you it does is selling something. But bit by bit, it changed. Ava took the banner down herself, the 20-foot one with her own face on it. She took it down with her own hands and didn't put anything up in its place for a while. And then one day she hung a small wooden sign she had made in her own garage, and it didn't have her face on it, and it didn't have a trophy on it, and it just said, in letters she had burned in by hand, "The strongest thing you will learn here is when not to." She stopped the demonstrations where she smashed the bag to hear people gasp. She started teaching differently. She caught herself sometimes, mid-sentence, about to humiliate a beginner for a sloppy punch, the way she used to. She would feel the old reflex come up, the easy laugh, the cheap way to feel big, and she would stop, and take a breath, and get down on the kid's level, and fix the punch instead. It was hard. It was so much harder than being cruel. She had told Noah his mom was right about that. That saying sorry was the first half, and the second half was harder. And she was living the second half now, every single day. One swallowed reflex at a time. Marcus noticed first. "You are different, coach," he said one evening, watching her patiently walk a nervous 40-year-old beginner through a stance for the 10th time. "Since the fight? You are, I don't know, you're better at this now. Everybody's staying. Did you know that nobody is quitting anymore? They used to quit because you scared them. Now they stay." "Yeah," Ava said, watching the beginner finally get it, watching the man's face light up. "Turns out you can't build somebody up and tear them down at the same time. Who knew?" She almost smiled. "I wish somebody told me that 10 years ago." "Somebody kind of did," Marcus said. "A janitor." And Ava did smile then, and didn't argue. Daniel kept mopping the floors. That was the part the internet never quite got over. There were think pieces about it. There were people who were almost angry about it. A man with that story, that skill, that viral fame. And he chose to keep pushing a mop. They wanted him to monetize it. They wanted a book, a podcast, a seminar tour. Del Kasich called 4 more times with 4 bigger offers, each one more insulting than the last, until Daniel finally told him kindly that if he called again, Daniel would come find him and explain in person why he wouldn't. Del Kasich never called again, because Daniel understood something the internet couldn't. He understood that the whole point, the entire complete point of everything he had done in that gym, was to show his son that a man's worth isn't the size of his platform. That you can be the strongest person anyone has ever seen and choose to be small and quiet and useful, and therefore pick him up at 3 o'clock. And that choosing that, when the whole world is screaming at you to cash in, is its own kind of door held shut with your bare hands. So he mopped the floors, and 3 afternoons a week, when he finished mopping, he would sit on the bench in the corner, the same corner where Noah had thrown a bad punch that started all of it. And he would watch his son learn to fight from the woman who had once laughed at him. And every so often, Ava would look over at him, and Daniel would give a small shake of his head. Wrong. Watch his balance. Or a small nod. Good. That's it. Let him feel that. And Ava would adjust, and the lesson would go on. The 3 of them built something in that corner that didn't have a name. And then, on a Saturday in the fall, 6 months after the night that started everything, Noah Carter took his first belt test. The gym was full again. Not the way it had been full for the fight. No news vans, no Del Kasich, no live stream, no one-punch shirts, just families. Parents and grandparents and little brothers and sisters, folding chairs and orange slices, and a folding table with a sheet cake somebody's mom had brought. The ordinary, holy, unviral fullness of a room full of people who love the kids being tested. Daniel sat in the front row. He had cleaned the gym that morning like always. Then he had gone home and changed. Not into anything fancy. He didn't own anything fancy, just a clean shirt. And he had come back and sat in the front row where his son could see him, the same way his son had once stood on a chair in the front row where his father could see him. That was a thing they did now. They found each other in rooms. It had started as a lifeline and become a language. Rachel sat beside him, phone out, already crying a little. Because she had been crying a little at everything since that night in the truck. Ava ran the test herself. She called the students up one at a time, patient and warm and exacting. And she had become, in 6 months, the kind of teacher that the woman on the old banner would not have recognized, and might not have liked. And that was the highest compliment the universe could have paid to the change in her. She called Noah up last. "Noah Carter," Ava said, and her voice was steady. But Daniel could hear the thing underneath it, because he had learned to hear the things underneath Ava's voice. "Show me your form." And Noah did. He went through it. Clean. The stances, the strikes, the blocks, 6 months of 3 afternoons a week built into his small body. No longer the kid who punched like he was apologizing. He was still 10, he was still small, but there was something in the way he moved now that hadn't been there before. A groundedness, a quiet. And Daniel watched his son and felt his throat close up, because he could see it. He could see the thing Ava had promised to build. His boy was learning the muscle. His boy was learning to stop before he had ever learned to lose control, which was backwards from how Daniel had learned it. Backwards, and so much better. The right way. The way Daniel had bled for and welded a door for and almost lost himself for. His son was getting it as a gift. At 10, without the scars. Noah finished his last move and held the final position. Breathing. Focused. And then he did the thing that nobody had taught him. He turned. Before Ava could say whether he had passed, and he looked into the front row. And he found his father's face the way he always found it. The way they always found each other. And he held his father's eyes for one long second across the whole crowded gym. And Daniel Carter nodded. Not, "You passed." That wasn't his to give. That was Ava's. Something else. Something that said, "I see you. I see exactly who you are becoming, and your mother would not be able to breathe right now for how proud she would be. I have got it covered, bud. I have got you. I will always have you." Noah nodded back and turned to Ava. "That," Ava said, and her voice cracked despite everything. "That is a pass. That is a pass, Noah. You earned it." The gym erupted. Applause, cheering, the good kind. The kind that builds people up instead of tearing them down. Orange slices and sheet cake and a grandmother in the 3rd row on her feet clapping like her hands might come off. Noah's face split into the biggest grin Daniel had seen on it in a year, maybe longer. Maybe since before his mother got sick. And the boy ran. The way he had run onto the fighting floor 6 months ago, the same run. But everything about the world it ran into was different now, and he crossed the gym and he threw himself into his father's arms. Daniel caught him. Of course he caught him. He had always catch him. That was the entire job. The whole job. The only job that ever mattered. "I did it, Dad." "You did it, bud. You did the whole thing. I watched every second." "Did I do it right? The stopping part?" "Ava says you can't test the stopping part. You can only test the punches. But did I?" "You did it right," Daniel said into his son's hair. "You have been doing it right your whole life. You did it right in a gym full of people 6 months ago when you called me back from the worst thing I have ever almost done." He held him tighter. "You are better at the stopping part than I am, buddy. You always were. I am just trying to catch up to you." And across the gym, under the small hand-burned sign where a 20-foot banner of her own face used to hang, Ava Reynolds stood and watched a father hold his son. And she wasn't undone this time. She wasn't broken. She was just quiet and full and changed. The way a person is when they finally, after a long time, become someone they can stand to be. Marcus came up beside her. "You okay, Coach?" "Yeah," Ava said. And she meant it all the way down, maybe for the first time in her adult life. "Yeah, Marcus, I'm okay." She watched Daniel set the boy down. watched the two of them stand there in the middle of all that ordinary joy. And she thought about the night she had stood on that same floor and picked out the one person she thought she could make smallest so she could feel biggest. She thought about how sure she had been, how certain, bone certain, the way you are only certain about things you have never actually been tested on. And she thought about what she had learned standing this close to it, closer than anyone. The strongest person in the room had never been the one who could hurt you. It had never been the champion on the banner, or the fastest hands in the gym, or the man who could put you on the floor before your reflexes filed a complaint. The strongest person in the room was the one who had every reason to prove it, every right to prove it, every ability to prove it, and looked at his son instead, and chose not to. Later that night, after the cake was gone and the folding chairs were stacked and the gym was empty, Daniel came back one more time to lock up. It was his job. He still had the keys. And he stood alone for a minute in the dark, quiet room where all of it had happened. The corner where his boy had thrown a bad punch. The floor where a door had opened and a small voice had closed it. The wall where a banner used to hang. Noah was asleep in the truck. Rachel was watching him. Everything was done. And Daniel Carter, alone in the dark, he thought about a promise he had made 1.5 years ago, at a hospital bed, to a woman who had looked at every terrible thing he had ever been and loved him anyway, and asked him for exactly one thing. Promise me he never meets that man. Promise me our son never once has to be afraid of you. He had almost broken it. He had come one word away. Everyone had seen, but he hadn't broken it. And the reason he hadn't broken it was the same reason he had made the promise in the first place. A boy who was right now asleep in a truck with a fresh belt folded in his backpack, safe and unafraid, and becoming a little more every day. The man he was always meant to be, a man who would never have to weld shut any door at all. Daniel turned off the lights. He locked the gym, and he walked out to the truck where his son was sleeping, and he got in. And he drove his boy home through the quiet dark. A maintenance worker, a father, the strongest man 11 million people had ever seen. Going back to a small life he had chosen on purpose, and would choose again 1,000 times, because in the end, the whole world had it exactly backwards. They thought his silence was weakness. They thought his kindness was fear. They thought the strongest thing a man could do was prove what he was capable of. But Daniel Carter knew the truth, and he had spent his whole life paying for it. And he had finally handed it down to his son. Clean. A man's worth is never measured by the power he shows. It is measured every single time by the power he chooses not to use.